Hello? All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Josh Levine. You might recognize me as Joshua from the elevators. I'm the COO for Equity Sales. I'm also the chair of the REACH Network. The REACH Network is the voice of people with disability or employees with disabilities here at Barclays. We're a small network. We're always looking for more volunteers, so if you're interested in a leadership role, please reach out to me. It's a great opportunity to get involved with the firm and the community. So we put on network events, awareness events like tonight. We raise money for philanthropy, and we also focus on recruiting. Recruiting is very important because people with disabilities are underemployed. So we've actually had a pretty good result so far this year. We've had 18 juniors self-identify, which is a huge result for us, actually. So special thanks to Sarah Sassone and George Okra for all their help in doing that. So we're here tonight because October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So employment is that key word. So I just want to draw out some themes I think you're going to get out of tonight and try and link them to employment. One reason we do tonight's events is because we're trying to get exposure, right? So as we learned in unconscious bias training, it's okay to feel a little awkward around someone who's different, right? So tonight, someone in a wheelchair. What's cool about tonight is we have someone who's one of our own who's in a wheelchair. So breaking down that barriers, being exposed to someone in a wheelchair, hopefully increases that culture of inclusion and makes it a better place to work here at Barclays. Second of all is adaptability. So we all know adaptability is a key skill we want in the workforce or in life. Well, humans are pretty adaptable. People with disabilities are experts at adapting. So you know that when you hire someone with a disability, you're hiring someone who's an expert at adapting. And finally, inspiration, right? You're definitely going to walk out of here inspired today. If you had like tonight's speaker working next to you every day, you're going to be inspired every day. So another reason to hire someone with a disability. That's it. Listen, this is an amazing turnout, guys, for a former colleague. Really appreciate you guys all coming out. I'm going to turn over to Rich Cunningham, Senior Relationship Manager, make some opening remarks.
Well, I must say it's a real honor to have Ron with us tonight. You know, Ron really is one of us. So just by way of background, Ron went to Penn, graduated Penn, and then went and did a MBA at Columbia. And then, bounced around the street as an international equity salesperson before he came home and joined Lehman Brothers in '99 as an Asian equity salesperson. He worked hard. He grew up through the ranks, always diligent. When we were in or out of Asia, Ron was always there. More out than in those days. And then, he grew up in the organization, became a managing director, and ultimately ran the group and ran on our Asian sales force into the United States. So one of the three things struck me about Ron. The first thing was persistence. Throughout all of that turmoil, and whether we were in Asia or not, Ron was very steady, came in every day, was extremely diligent, and worked very hard against the odds. He also managed to do this. One of the things I didn't really know about him was that he was an unbelievable athlete too. He was always bike riding, mountain climbing, running, doing whatever it was that was physical, as well as balancing his work life. And a big family man with his wife and kids. The other thing about Ron was extreme loyalty. So, this really manifested itself when the bankruptcy occurred and Barclays bought the U.S. assets of Lehman. And we all knew that it would be a number of years before we built out an Asian franchise. And here you had Ron, who was the Asian equity salesperson, that wasn't going to have any Asian equity research to sell for a couple of years yet. And despite the fact that his own personal franchise may wane with his client base, he stuck it out and he stayed with us. And he stayed the course, which says a lot about him. The third thing is leadership, because not only did Ron stay the course for himself, but he actively persuaded his people, who he had a lot of personal capital with, to stay the course as well. And they were very innovative. They created different products to sell to their clients based on the global research reach that we had in macro, etc., to be relevant with those non-Japan Asian clients. So sadly, in November 2011, that great Wall Street career was hit by an accident on a bicycle in New Jersey. And ever since then, Ron has driven his way through that and overcome huge obstacles created an organization called Lean On We, and should be an inspiration to us all. So without further ado, Ron Gold.
I don't know if I should just leave after that. I can't top that. It's quite a shock to be here. A little bit strange, but it feels great. It feels great to be back at Barclays with the outpouring of support and love that you're showing. I have to tell you, this is not the way I wanted to come back to West Orange. I started thinking back to high school graduation. My senior year, when we submitted our yearbook pictures, we were also supposed to submit a quote. I didn't know what to do. I was a big Springsteen fan, so I said, okay, my favorite song is Thunder Road. I'm going to do the last line of that song. It's a town full of losers. I'm pulling out of here to win. It sounded so witty at the time. I regretted it almost instantaneously. But like many things I did in high school, it was not particularly well thought out. Back to Kessler, the loser, me, hadn't gotten away. On my first PT session, I sat up and then promptly passed out. Some athlete. Every night at Kessler, I'd sob myself to sleep, hoping, praying that I'd wake up in the morning and things would go back to the way they were. They didn't. The next night, and the night after, I'd cry myself to sleep, hoping somehow I could reverse course and things could be the way they were. But they weren't. When I came home from Kessler after 3 months, so it's 5 months in total, the magnitude of everything that happened prevented me from moving forward mentally. I kept saying, why me? Why me? I couldn't let the anger dissipate. My wife said, why not you? Stuff happens. Why should you be so special? But for me, it was a constant refrain. Why me? I was even ambivalent about seeing visitors, because when people would come, it would make my new reality all the more real. There I was, this dazed, scrawny paraplegic who could barely move. So, if the first question is, what happened to this guy? And the next question is, why should you care? Well, I pray and I hope that nothing as catastrophic or traumatic happens to any of you. But you're all going to need and have met challenges, and you've needed to adapt to things along the way. Now, it may be a medical issue that you or a loved one face. It may be a personal issue. It may be a work issue, although I'm sure that doesn't really happen here. You may get a new boss. I've had bosses in New York, London, and Hong Kong, and it's always been a revolving door. So I'm sure you've dealt with some of these issues as well. Well, my life since the accident has been one big adaptation, as I'm sure you can expect. When I got home from the hospital, Betsy had to put a long, winding ramp so I could even get in the house. But that was only the first floor. I couldn't get to the bedroom, couldn't get to the basement. She converted her office to a bedroom. We made do. But we realized that that wasn't going to work. And it didn't make sense to put all the money into the house. So we ended up selling our dream house that we had designed and built ourselves and moved into a townhouse. Another example is the first time we went away overnight. We went to Atlantic City to stay at the Borgata. We had all our stuff. We made it up to the bedroom, and we forgot my transfer board. So you're asking, what's a transfer board? Well, since I brought my props, transfer board is something like this, and it allows someone who's paralyzed or not able to move well to transfer from a chair to a bed or a car to a chair or whatever. But I didn't have this. And the bed was way up here in the bedroom. What are you going to do? Betsy looked around. In the closet, there it was, the ironing board. It worked. It wasn't pretty, though. And the last example I'll give you is the independence, or the lack of independence that I have now. So when I left, Kessler said, you need to go out and buy a conversion van, one of those big vans with a ramp and moves up and down. And initially I would roll into it, and Betsy would drive, and I would be in the passenger side. And then as I got stronger, I was able to drive it with hand controls. So you push the brake and you pull to accelerate. The thing is, I hated that minivan. It was always breaking down, and it was big and clunky, and most of all, it just reeked of cripple. I couldn't wait to ditch it. As I got stronger, I was able to move to a sedan. So now, I drive with a sedan. I have hand controls in the sedan. I no longer use the prop. I roll up to the car, I transfer in, I take the wheels off, I put them behind me, take the base of the chair, put them on the passenger seat, and away I go. And when I'm in that car, nobody knows that I'm disabled. It's one of the few feelings I have out there where, hey, I'm out there and I'm doing my thing. So I can't say there was any one catalyst to my mental or physical recovery. But in bits and pieces, I started to, I wouldn't say adapt, but I'd say resign myself to my new reality and started making changes to live within it. And about this time, it was a year and a half ago, one of my closest friends of 35 years died in an equestrian accident. She was an incredible human being, a native South African. She really believed in making a difference in the world. In fact, she herself, with her willpower, had built a residential school in Rwanda to take care of orphans from the genocide there. And I was thinking, after her funeral, what would her family do to have her back, even in a wheelchair? And I needed to appreciate what I had. And then I had another friend who just came down with stage 4 breast cancer after 10 years ago going through a double mastectomy, which is far more than her doctors had suggested. I have another friend who's got early onset Alzheimer's, and another friend who's waiting for a new kidney. This is all in the early 50s. Stuff happens. And it's hard to accept it, but it's there. So I guess my philosophy is we're all dealt a set of cards, and you just have to go out there and play those cards the best way you can. One of my favorite movies was The Shawshank Redemption. I've seen that. It's like one of those movies that every time it's on TV, I can't turn it off, and I know all the lines. And anyway, one of my favorite lines is when the Tim Robbins character, Andy Dufresne, says to Morgan Freeman, Red, you better get busy living or get busy dying. So I sort of took that to heart, and I figured I have to move forward. One of the things that was gnawing at me is that while my wife was tending to me, she was also managing the lives of my kids. And they were moving out into their own beautifully while I was standing still. So I knew that I ran the risk of being left behind unless I re-engaged and recommitted myself to be a father and a husband. So now that I'm accepting life in a wheelchair, for the most part, what am I going to do? Barclays have been great, left the door open for me, and I always expected that I would come back here. There were several times when I thought, okay, I'm feeling better, I'm going to come back, but I had a a medical lapse, another surgery. It kept getting pushed off. It kept getting pushed off. And then finally I said, you know what? This isn't going to happen. I can't fly and travel the way I used to. It's time for me to try to do something else. And as it turned out, I literally fell into something that was of great interest to me. So when I got home after 5 months in hospitals, I had 2 months of caregiving coverage provided by our insurance. And then it's over. Over. I have indefinite needs, a lifetime. What am I going to do? Well, when you're paying out of pocket, an agency is expensive and restrictive. The agency said to me, well, you can continue to use our agency. You can pay out of pocket. It'll be $25 an hour, and it's a 4-hour minimum. $100 a day out of my pocket. That's not reasonable. So I started doing what most people do when they're in that kind of situation. They start thinking about hiring a caregiver privately. That's what my dad did when he was suffering from Parkinson, and that's what most people do. Why? Because, well, primarily because it's less expensive. But the problem is, there is no good way to find a caregiver. Everybody does a sort of word of mouth. Does anyone know? Do you know? Your neighbor's uncle used someone 6 months ago. The thing is, you don't know if that person's reliable, trustworthy, or even a criminal. I thought this was a crazy way to find a caregiver to come in your home or your loved one's home. I mean, you wouldn't buy any product or service with as little information as people have about the caregiver that's going into their parents' house. And I figured, this is a broken home care system, and we could disrupt it. Now we're going to go back. Oh, no, I guess not. And that's what we've done. We started this company. We call it Lean On We, because I have my Lean On We vest. I used to have the Lehman vest, Barclays vest. Now I have the Lean On We vest. Yes, it's a play on the Bill Withers song, but it's also an acknowledgement that when you're in a time of need, you need a team to lean on. And that's what we are. So it's really a very simple concept. Instead of just going by the word of mouth, for all those people who want to hire privately, why don't we create a network of pre-screened, vetted